Captain Jake Miller stood at the observation deck of the New Horizon Defense Station, sipping his morning coffee. The view of Earth from this height never got old. Blue oceans, white clouds, and the busy traffic of ships moving between the planet and the lunar colonies. It was a peaceful Tuesday morning, just like any other. Then the alarm started ringing. "Captain Miller to the bridge," came the voice over the intercom. "We have multiple contacts appearing on long-range sensors." Jake put down his coffee and walked quickly to the bridge. His crew was already at their stations, looking at the main screen with surprised expressions. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez turned to him with wide eyes. "Sir, we've got 12 large ships materializing about 50,000 kilometers from Earth. They're big, really big." Jake looked at the screen. The ships were massive, easily 3 times the size of Earth's largest vessels. They had strange, curved designs with lots of golden decorations. They looked more like floating palaces than warships. "Are they using cloaking technology?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir, but it's pretty basic stuff. Our sensors picked them up easily once they started dropping their cloak. The technology looks about 50 years old by our standards." Jake nodded. "Any communication attempts?" "Not yet, sir. They're just sitting there." Suddenly, the main screen flickered. A new image appeared, a tall, thin alien with purple skin and elaborate robes. The alien had 4 arms and a crown-like structure on his head. Behind him, Jake could see what looked like a throne room filled with other aliens bowing low. "Greetings, primitive beings of the 3rd planet," the alien spoke in a deep, dramatic voice. "I am Supreme Commander Vexthul of the mighty Zephyrian Galactic Empire. Your world has been chosen for incorporation into our glorious empire." Jake looked around. The bridge. His crew was trying not to smile. The alien speech was so over the top that it sounded like something from an old movie. "You will surrender immediately," Vexthul continued. "Resistance is futile. Our technology is beyond your understanding. Our weapons can destroy entire star systems. Our empire spans thousands of worlds across the galaxy." Lieutenant Rodriguez whispered to Jake, "Sir, I'm scanning their weapons. They appear to be using fusion-based energy cannons. We stopped using those 20 years ago." Jake nodded and activated the communication system. "This is Captain Jake Miller of the Earth Defense Force. Welcome to our solar system. We'd like to invite you to meet with our leaders for peaceful discussions." Vexthul looked confused. "Peaceful discussions? Did you not hear me, primitive being? I said surrender immediately. We are not here to negotiate." "Of course," Jake said politely. "But surely such a powerful empire would prefer to handle this matter through proper diplomatic channels. We'll contact our government right away." Meanwhile, in the underground command center in Colorado, President Kate Johnson was meeting with her advisors. The main screen showed the alien fleet hanging in space above Earth. "Well, this is interesting," said General Sam Davis, the head of Earth's military forces. "First contact, and they want to conquer us." Dr. Helen Brooks, the chief science advisor, was studying the alien ships. "Their technology is fascinating, but not in the way they think. These ships are using ion drives for movement. We've been using quantum displacement engines for 30 years. It's like someone showing up with a horse and buggy claiming to have the fastest transportation in the world." Admiral Lisa Carter, who commanded Earth's space fleet, was trying not to laugh. "Their ships are big, but they're mostly empty space. All those decorations and fancy designs make them look impressive, but they're not very practical. Our ships are smaller, but much more advanced." President Johnson looked thoughtful. "What's our standard first contact protocol?" "Be friendly, be careful, and try to learn about their culture," replied Dr. Brooks. "But this situation is unusual. They're not trying to communicate peacefully. They actually think they're conquering us. What do you recommend?" the president asked. General Davis spoke up. We could disable their entire fleet in about 5 minutes. Our defense systems are completely beyond their level. But that might not be the best approach. I agree, said Dr. Brooks. These beings seem to genuinely believe they're advanced. If we humiliate them right away, it could cause problems. Maybe we should play along for now and see what they really want. Back on the New Horizon, Jake was still talking to Supreme Commander Vexthul. The alien leader was becoming more frustrated. Why are you not afraid? Vexthul demanded. Your primitive sensors should be showing you the power of our weapons. Our ships carry enough firepower to reduce your planet to space dust. Lieutenant. Rodriguez had been quietly analyzing the alien ships. She leaned over to Jake and whispered, Sir, their most powerful weapon has about the same energy output as our mining lasers, the ones we use to cut up asteroids. Jake kept his expression neutral. Your ships are very impressive, Commander. We're sure our leaders will want to discuss terms with you properly. Terms? Vexthul's 4 arms waved dramatically. There are no terms, only surrender and obedience to the Empire. Of course, Jake said calmly. But surely you understand that such an important matter requires proper procedures. We'll need to contact our government officials, prepare meeting spaces, arrange for translation services. Translation services? Vexthul looked confused. We are speaking your primitive language. Yes, and we appreciate that, Jake replied. But for formal negotiations, we'll need everything properly documented and translated into all Earth languages. It's just how our bureaucracy works. This seemed to frustrate Vexthul even more. Bureaucracy? We are conquerors, not bureaucrats. Dr. Amy Rodriguez was now grinning openly. The aliens' confusion was becoming more obvious by the minute. These beings had clearly never encountered a species that wasn't immediately terrified of them. I'll connect you directly to our planetary government, Jake said. They'll be able to handle your ... incorporation procedures much better than I can. As the communication ended, Jake's crew finally allowed themselves to smile. Sir, said Rodriguez, are we really going to let them think they're conquering us? For now, Jake replied. This could be very educational. Besides, they seem harmless. Enough. Their weapons couldn't even scratch our ship's shields. Lieutenant Tony Clark, the communications officer, looked up from his station. Sir, I'm getting reports from other defense stations. The aliens have sent similar messages to all major Earth governments. Same dramatic speech, same demands for surrender. And the responses? Most governments are trying not to laugh, sir. The consensus seems to be that we should treat this as a diplomatic first contact situation rather than an invasion. Jake nodded. Good. Set up a communication link with Earth Command and make sure our response teams are ready. This is going to be interesting. As the New Horizon continued its orbit, Jake watched the alien fleet through the observation windows. The ships were beautiful in their own way, with all their golden decorations and flowing curves. But they were also clearly built by people who valued appearance over function. You know what's funny? Jake said to his crew. They really do think they're the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. And they probably are, compared to most of the species they've encountered. Just not compared to us, Rodriguez added. With a grin. Just not compared to us, Jake agreed. This is going to be a very interesting first contact. 3 days after the first contact, the Zephyrian delegation landed at the United Nations building in New York. Ambassador Tony Clark stood waiting with a team of human diplomats, scientists, and cultural experts. He had been briefed to be polite, but not to reveal too much about human technology right away. The alien shuttle was an impressive sight. It was covered in gold and silver decorations, with flowing designs that made it look like a work of art. But Dr. Helen Brooks standing next to Tony, noticed that it landed with a lot of noise and smoke. Human shuttles landed silently using gravity manipulation technology. "Remember," Tony whispered to his team, "we're here to learn about them, not to show off." The shuttle's ramp lowered with dramatic music playing from speakers. Supreme Commander Vexthal walked down first, followed by several other aliens in fancy robes. They moved slowly and formally, clearly trying to make an impression. "Greetings, beings of Earth," Vexthal announced. "We have come to begin your integration into the Zephyrian Empire. You should feel honored." Tony stepped forward with a smile. "Welcome to Earth, Commander. We're excited to learn about your civilization." Vexthal looked surprised. "Learn about us? You are the ones who must learn. We are here to teach you the ways of advanced civilization." "Of course," Tony replied politely. "We're always eager to learn new things." The first meeting took place in the UN's main conference room. The Zephyrians sat on one side of the table, humans on the other. Dr. Helen Brooks was taking notes, trying not to show her amusement at what she was hearing. "Our empire," said Commander Zalkar, one of Vexthal's officers, "spans over 3,000 star systems. We have brought peace and order to countless primitive worlds." "That's impressive," said Dr. Amy Rodriguez, the science advisor. "How do you communicate across such distances?" Zalkar puffed up proudly. "We use quantum entanglement communicators. Instant communication across any distance. It is technology beyond the understanding of most species." Amy nodded politely. She didn't mention that humans had been using quantum communication networks for 20 years. Every human home had access to the galactic internet through quantum links. "How long does it take to travel between your worlds?" asked Tony. "With our advanced hyperspace drives," Vexthal replied, "we can cross the galaxy in mere months. Some journeys take only weeks." Dr. Brooks wrote this down carefully. Human ships could cross the galaxy in days, using spacefold technology, but she kept her expression neutral. "Tell us about your energy sources," said Dr. Pete Johnson, an engineer who had been invited to the meeting. Technical Officer Kethmer stepped forward eagerly. "We harness the power of entire stars using fusion collection arrays. Our ships can operate for years without refueling." Pete nodded respectfully. He didn't mention that human ships used zero-point energy extractors that could power a city for centuries, using energy from empty space itself. As the day went on, the pattern continued. The Zephyrians would proudly describe their advanced technology, and the humans would politely listen while taking notes. Each piece of alien technology was impressive by the standards of 100 years ago, but primitive compared to current human capabilities. During a break, Dr. Helen Brooks took Commander Zalkar on a tour of the UN building. She wanted to learn more about Zephyrian culture without making them feel inferior. "Tell me about life in your empire," Helen said as they walked through the halls. "What do your people do for entertainment?" Zalkar seemed happy to talk about this. "We have great amphitheaters where thousands gather to watch holographic performances. Our artists can create images that seem completely real." Helen nodded. "That sounds wonderful. Do people enjoy interactive entertainment as well?" "Interactive?" Zalkar looked confused. "You know, where the audience can participate in the story or change how it ends." "Why would anyone want to change?" "A story?" Zalkar asked. "Stories are told by artists. The audience watches and learns." Helen realized that the Zephyrians had never developed interactive media. Human children grew up with stories they could enter and change, learning to be creative participants rather than passive observers. Meanwhile, Dr. Amy Rodriguez was having a similar conversation with Technical Officer Kethmer about artificial intelligence. "Our ship computers are very advanced," Kethmer was saying. "They can perform millions of calculations per second and respond to voice commands. Do they learn and grow smarter over time? Amy asked. Kethmer looked puzzled. Why would a computer need to learn? We program them to do what we want them to do. Amy realized that the Zephyrians had never developed true artificial intelligence. Their computers were just very fast calculators. Meanwhile, every human had AI companions that could think, learn, and even create art and music. The cultural differences became more obvious during lunch. The humans had prepared a variety of foods from different Earth cultures, using molecular gastronomy to create interesting flavors and textures. Vexthil looked at his plate suspiciously. What is this strange substance? It's synthesized protein, with flavor compounds designed to taste like the foods from your home world, explained Chef Lisa Turner, who had prepared the meal. We analyzed the chemical composition of Zephyrian food from your ship's exhaust and created something you'd find familiar. The aliens stared at her in shock. You analyzed our exhaust to determine our food preferences? Asked Zalkar. It's a standard hospitality protocol, Lisa said cheerfully. We wanted you to feel comfortable. Vexthil took a careful bite. His eyes widened in surprise. This tastes exactly like food from my own world. How is this possible? Basic molecular chemistry, Lisa replied. Once you know what compounds create certain flavors, you can recreate them using any protein base. The Zephyrians exchanged worried glances. This level of chemical analysis and synthesis was far beyond their capabilities. After lunch, the Zephyrians wanted to demonstrate their military technology. They set up a small weapon in the UN courtyard with appropriate safety measures. Behold, announced Commander Zalkar, the power of Zephyrian plasma cannons. The weapon fired a bright beam at a target, creating a small explosion and leaving a smoking crater. The humans applauded politely. Dr. Pete Johnson examined the weapon with interest. Very impressive, he said. The plasma containment field is quite stable. How much energy does it use per shot? Kethmer proudly stated the energy requirements. Pete nodded and made calculations in his head. The weapon used about as much energy as a human mining laser and was much less efficient. Would you like to see some of our technology? Tony asked. Vexthil looked surprised. Your technology? But you are a primitive species. Well, maybe not. Completely primitive, Tony said with a smile. Dr. Johnson, would you mind showing our guests the handheld fabricator? Pete pulled out a device about the size of a smartphone. This is a basic construction tool. Watch. He pointed it at the ground and activated it. The device created a perfect replica of the target the aliens had destroyed, but made of solid metal instead of wood. The Zephyrians stared in shock. How? Vexthil demanded. Molecular assembly, Pete explained simply. It takes carbon and other elements from the air and soil and arranges them into whatever pattern we program. Kethmer examined the device with trembling hands. This is impossible. Matter cannot be rearranged so easily. Actually, it's pretty basic technology, Pete said. Kindly, we've been using these for about 15 years. Every construction worker has one. The afternoon continued with more demonstrations and conversations. Each interaction revealed the same pattern. The Zephyrians had technology that was impressive by ancient standards, but humanity had surpassed them in every area. Dr. Helen Brooks was particularly interested in Zephyrian society. She learned that their empire was actually quite peaceful. They didn't conquer worlds through violence, but by convincing primitive species that they were gods or advanced beings worthy of worship. Most species we encounter, Zalkar explained, are still using chemical rockets or have just discovered electricity. When they see our ships and technology, they assume we are divine beings. And then they join your empire willingly? Helen asked. Yes, we provide them with improved technology and governance. In return, they provide resources, and workers for our civilization. Helen realized that the Zephyrians weren't evil conquerors. They were more like well-meaning but misguided teachers who thought they were helping primitive species develop. The problem was that humanity wasn't primitive. As the day ended, both sides had learned a lot about each other. The humans had discovered that the Zephyrians were peaceful but technologically backward. The Zephyrians were beginning to suspect that humans might not be as primitive as they had assumed. "Tomorrow," announced Vexthul, "we will take representatives of your species aboard our flagship. There you will see the true power and glory of the Zephyrian Empire." Tony smiled. "We look forward to it, Commander." As the aliens returned to their shuttle, Dr. Helen Brooks turned to her colleagues. "This is going to be interesting," she said. "They have no idea what they're dealing with." "Should we tell them the truth?" asked Amy. "Not yet," Tony replied. "Let's see how far this goes. Besides, they seem like good people. We might be able to help them." "Help them?" asked Pete. "Think about it," Tony said. "They've been going around the galaxy trying to help primitive species develop." The next morning, Captain Julie Anderson led a small team of humans aboard the Zephyrian flagship. The group included Dr. Helen Brooks, engineer Alex Turner, and communications specialist Nina Wells. They had been chosen because they were good at staying calm and polite, even when surprised. The alien shuttle that picked them up was decorated with so much gold and silver that it was almost blinding. But Alex noticed that the engines were very loud and the ride was bumpy. Human shuttles moved smoothly and silently. "Welcome aboard the mighty vessel, Glory of Zephyr," announced Commander Zalkar as they docked. "This ship is the pride of our empire. It has never been defeated in battle." Julie looked around the docking bay with interest. It was huge and elaborately decorated, but she could see that most of the space was wasted. Human ships were designed for efficiency, not show. "It's very impressive," she said politely. "How large is your crew?" "Over 10,000 beings serve aboard this vessel," Zalkar replied proudly. "It takes many skilled workers to operate such advanced technology." Alex quietly calculated that a human ship this size would need about 50 crew members. The rest would be automated or controlled by AI systems. Their first stop was the bridge. Supreme Commander Vexthul was waiting for them, standing in front of a massive command chair that looked more like a throne than a practical piece of equipment. "Behold," Vexthul said dramatically, "the nerve center of galactic conquest." The bridge was enormous, with hundreds of crew members sitting at individual stations. Each station had dozens of switches, buttons, and displays. The whole room buzzed with activity and noise. Dr. Helen Brooks watched the crew working and realized that they were doing everything manually. On a human ship, most of these functions would be handled automatically by the ship's AI systems. "Very impressive," Julie said. "How do you coordinate all these different stations?" "Through superior training and discipline," Vexthul replied. "Each crew member has spent years learning their specific duties." Nina Wells, the communications specialist, was studying the command systems. She noticed that the crew members were essentially acting as human computers, doing calculations and data processing that machines should handle. "Would you like to see our advanced artificial intelligence system?" asked Technical Officer Kethmer. He led them to a large room filled with massive computers. The machines were humming loudly and giving off a lot of heat. In the center was a console with a single screen. "This is MIND-7, Kethmer announced, "the most advanced thinking machine in the galaxy. It can perform billions of calculations and answer any question." He activated the system. "MIND-7, what is the status of our weapon systems?" "All weapon systems are functioning normally," the machine replied in a flat, mechanical voice. "Energy levels are at 94.7%. Alex looked impressed, but for the wrong reasons. The AI was less advanced than the voice assistant in his daughter's bedroom. It could only give simple, pre-programmed responses. Does it learn and develop new capabilities? Helen asked. Kethmer looked confused. Why would it need to learn? We program it to do what we need. Can it hold conversations or create new ideas? Nina asked. Conversations? Kethmer seemed puzzled. It is a machine. Machines do not converse. The humans exchanged glances. They didn't mention that human AI systems could write poetry, compose music, and even develop their own personalities. Next, they visited the ship's engineering section. The engines were massive, taking up several decks of the ship. Hundreds of technicians were monitoring systems and making adjustments. These fusion reactors, explained Chief Engineer Vorthak, provide power for all ship systems. They are the most efficient energy source known to science. Alex studied the massive machines with interest. They were well built, but incredibly inefficient compared to human power systems. A human ship would use a zero-point energy extractor about the size of a refrigerator to produce 10 times more power. How often do you need to refuel? Alex asked. Every few months, Vorthak replied. We must stop at special stations to collect fuel materials. Alex nodded politely. Human ships could operate for decades without refueling, drawing energy directly from the quantum vacuum. The tour continued to the ship's medical bay. Dr. Tysile, the chief medical officer, proudly showed them the advanced healing technology. Our regeneration chambers can heal almost any injury, she explained. A being can be restored to full health in just a few days. Helen watched the demonstration with interest. The technology was impressive, but it was basically an advanced version of what humans had been using 30 years ago. Current human medical technology could heal most injuries in minutes, not days. Do you have any treatments for genetic diseases? Helen asked. Genetic diseases? Dr. Tysel looked confused. Those are permanent conditions. They cannot be changed. Helen realized that the Zephyrians had never developed genetic therapy. Human doctors could fix genetic problems before birth or cure them in living patients. The next stop was the ship's recreational facilities. The aliens were clearly proud of their entertainment systems. Our holographic theaters can create any environment, explained Recreation Officer Kellamore. Crew members can experience adventures on distant worlds or witness historical events. He activated a demonstration. A forest scene appeared around them, complete with trees, animals, and the sound of wind. It was quite realistic. This is wonderful, Julie said. Can people interact with the environment? Interact? Kellamore looked puzzled. They observe and enjoy. Why would they want to change it? Nina realized that the Zephyrians had never developed interactive entertainment. Human recreational systems allowed people to enter stories, make choices, and even create their own adventures. The tour moved on to the ship's food production facilities. The Zephyrians were very proud of their ability to create nutritious meals. From basic materials, our food synthesizers, explained Supply Officer Ranked H, can create any meal using simple protein and carbohydrate compounds. The machine produced a meal that looked and smelled appetizing. Julie tasted it and found it nutritious but bland. It's very efficient, she said politely. Do you have different flavors and cuisines? We have 17 different meal types. Renth replied proudly. Each provides perfect nutrition for different species in our empire. Julie didn't mention that human food synthesizers could create millions of different meals, each tailored to individual taste preferences and nutritional needs. As the tour continued, the pattern became more obvious. The Zephyrians had impressive technology, but it was all basic and inefficient compared to human capabilities. They had never developed artificial intelligence, interactive systems, or truly advanced automation. The most revealing moment came when they visited the ship's library. Librarian Scholar Vexme showed them the vast collection of knowledge stored in the ship's computers. "We have collected information from thousands of worlds," she explained. "The sum total of galactic knowledge is stored here." "How do people access this information?" Helen asked. "They request specific data from trained librarians," Vexme replied. "We find what they need and provide it to them." Helen realized that the Zephyrians had never developed search algorithms or user-friendly interfaces. Their advanced library system was basically a manual filing system with computers for storage. "Can people explore the database themselves?" Nina asked. "Why would they want to?" Vexme looked confused. Untrained users would not know how to find reliable information. The humans exchanged glances. Every human child learned to search and evaluate information independently. The idea of having to ask a librarian for every piece of information seemed incredibly restrictive. Near the end of the tour, they visited the ship's command center for scientific research. Dr. Quellak, the chief scientist, proudly showed them the analysis equipment. "Our sensors can detect energy signatures from light years away," he explained. "We can analyze the composition of distant stars and planets." Alex examined the equipment with interest. It was well designed, but limited. Human sensors could not only detect distant objects, but also analyze their quantum signatures, predict their future behavior, and even scan for life signs. "How do you handle data analysis?" Alex asked. "Teams of skilled scientists examine each reading," Dr. Quellak replied. "They compare it to known patterns and make conclusions." Alex realized that the Zephyrians were doing all their scientific analysis by hand. Human systems used AI to process data and identify patterns automatically, allowing scientists to focus on interpretation and discovery. As the tour ended, Supreme Commander Vexthul gathered the humans in his throne room. "Now you have seen the true power of the Zephyrian Empire," he announced. "Surely you understand that resistance is futile." Julie looked around at her team. They were all trying hard not to smile. The Zephyrians had shown them technology that was impressive by ancient standards, but primitive compared to current human capabilities. "Your ship is truly remarkable," Julie said diplomatically. "We've learned a great deal about your civilization." "Good," Vexthul replied. "Then you will return to your leaders and recommend immediate surrender." "We'll certainly share what we've learned," Julie promised. "I'm sure our government will be very interested in your empire." As they prepared to leave, Dr. Helen Brooks had a quiet conversation with Commander Zalkar. "Your people have AC." 1 week after the tour of the Zephyrian flagship, Supreme Commander Vexthul called another meeting. He had interpreted the humans' polite behavior as complete submission to his empire. The meeting was held in the same UN conference room, but this time Vexthul had brought more officers and what looked like official documents. "Beings of Earth," Vexthul announced dramatically, "your integration into the Zephyrian Empire is now complete. You have been assigned your proper place in the Galactic Order." Ambassador Tony Clark looked surprised. "I'm sorry, Commander, but I think there may be some misunderstanding. We haven't agreed to join your empire." "Agreement is not necessary," Vexthul replied confidently. "You have seen our superior technology. You understand that resistance is futile. Your submission is obvious." Dr. Helen Brooks leaned forward. "What makes you think we've submitted?" "Your behavior," Commander Zalkar explained. "You have been polite and respectful. You have not attacked our ships. You have not declared war. Clearly, you accept our authority." The humans exchanged glances. The aliens had completely misunderstood human diplomacy. "We're being polite because that's how we treat guests," Tony explained carefully. "It doesn't mean we're surrendering." Vexthul waved his 4 arms dismissively. "Your primitive concepts of guests and diplomacy are irrelevant. You are now subjects of the Empire." He gestured to Technical Officer Kethmer, who activated a holographic display. "We have prepared administrative assignments for your species. You will be classified as Level 3 technical workers." "Level 3?" asked Dr. Amy Rodriguez. "Yes," Kethner replied proudly. "Most primitive species start at Level 1, performing basic manual labor. But your species has shown some technical capability, so you qualify for Level 3 status." "And what does Level 3 status involve?" Tony asked. "You will help maintain our technology," Vextil explained. "Under proper supervision, of course. Your people will be trained to perform basic repairs and operate simple systems." Dr. Pete Johnson, the engineer, almost choked trying not to laugh. The idea of humans performing basic repairs on Zephyrian technology was absurd. It would be like asking rocket scientists to fix a broken wagon wheel. "We've also prepared improvements for your civilization," announced Chief Engineer Vorthak. "We will upgrade your primitive technology to proper Imperial standards." He activated another display showing various Zephyrian devices. "We will replace your basic computers with our advanced calculation machines. Your simple vehicles will be upgraded with proper fusion engines. Your primitive communication systems will be enhanced with quantum entanglement networks." The humans stared at the display in amazement. The Zephyrians wanted to replace advanced human technology with primitive alien equipment. "That's very generous," said Julie Anderson, who had joined the meeting, "but we're quite satisfied with our current technology." "Nonsense," Vorthak replied. "Your technology is clearly inferior. We have observed your spacecraft. They are small and simple. Our vessels are much larger and more impressive." "Size isn't everything," Julie said diplomatically. "Of course it is," Vexthol declared. "Large ships demonstrate power and authority. Small ships are clearly primitive." Dr. Amy Rodriguez decided to try a different approach. "Commander, would you be interested in seeing some of our technology? We could arrange a demonstration." "If you wish," Vexthol replied condescendingly. "It might be educational for you to see the difference between your primitive devices and our advanced systems." 3 days later, the demonstration was arranged at a military testing facility in Nevada. The Zephyrians arrived in their shuttle, expecting to see crude human attempts at technology. Fleet Admiral Grace Murphy was waiting for them with a small team of human officers. She had been briefed to be careful not to completely overwhelm the aliens, but to show them enough to make them reconsider their assumptions. "Welcome to our testing facility," Grace said politely. "We thought you might be interested in seeing some of our spacecraft." She led them to a hangar where a human patrol ship was waiting. The ship was sleek and compact, about 1/10 the size of the alien shuttle they had arrived in. "This is rather small," observed Commander Zalkar. "How many crew members does it carry?" "One," Grace replied, "though it can carry up to 6 passengers." "If needed." "One?" Vexthol looked shocked. "How can one being operate an entire starship?" "Most functions are automated," explained Captain Danny Ross, the ship's pilot. "The computer handles navigation, life support, weapons, and most other systems." "Impossible," declared Kethmer. "Machines cannot be trusted with such complex tasks." "Would you like to see a demonstration?" Danny asked Dot without waiting for an answer. He activated the ship's systems using voice commands. The engines started silently. The ship lifted smoothly off the ground and began performing complex maneuvers in the air above them. The Zephyrians watched in amazement as the small ship moved with impossible grace and precision. Their own shuttles were loud, clumsy, and required dozens of crew members to operate. "How is it so quiet?" asked Vorthak. "Gravity manipulation," Danny explained. "We don't use reaction drives for atmospheric flight." "Gravity manipulation?" Vorthak looked confused. "That's impossible. Gravity cannot be controlled." Grace decided to try a different demonstration. Would you like to see our weapon systems? She led them to a firing range where various human weapons were set up. Engineer Rob Parker was waiting with a handheld device about the size of a pistol. This is a standard military sidearm, Rob explained. Would you like to see what it can do? He pointed the weapon at a large boulder about 100 meters away. A brief flash of light, and the boulder simply vanished. Where did it go? Demanded Zalkar. Molecular disassembly, Rob replied casually. The weapon breaks down the atomic bonds. The boulder is now a cloud of individual atoms. The Zephyrians stared at the empty space where the boulder had been. Their most powerful ship weapons could barely crack such a large rock. That's impossible, Vexthal said weakly. No hand weapon could have such power. It's really just basic physics, Rob said kindly. Once you understand quantum mechanics at the atomic level, it's not that complicated. Admiral Grace decided to escalate the demonstration. Computer, please show our guests the orbital defense grid. A holographic display appeared, showing Earth surrounded by thousands of small satellites. These defensive platforms protect our planet, Grace explained. Each one is about the size of a refrigerator, but they can destroy objects as large as asteroids. How many do you have? Asked Zalkar nervously. About 50,000, Grace replied. They're fully automated and can respond to threats in milliseconds. The Zephyrians realized with growing horror that their entire fleet was completely outgunned by what humans considered basic planetary defense. The final demonstration was the most shocking. Dr. Carl Stone, a materials scientist, showed them a small device he called a fabricator. This machine can create almost anything, he explained. Watch. He activated the device and pointed it at the ground. Within seconds, a perfect replica of the Zephyrian shuttle appeared, complete in every detail. How? Whispered Kethmer. Molecular assembly, Carl replied. We scanned your shuttle when you landed and stored the pattern. The fabricator just arranges local materials to match that pattern, but the electronics, the computer systems. Vorthak protested. All reproduced perfectly, Carl confirmed. Though we had to simplify some of the components. Your technology is quite complex to manufacture. The Zephyrians stared at the duplicate shuttle in shock. In minutes, humans had created what took their best factories months to build. Supreme. Commander Vexthal sat down heavily on a nearby bench. This cannot be real, he said quietly. We are the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. You're advanced, Grace said gently. Just not as advanced as you thought. But we have conquered thousands of worlds, Zalkar protested weakly. I'm sure you have, Grace replied kindly. But those worlds were probably genuinely primitive. We're not. The ride back to the UN building was very quiet. The Zephyrians sat in their shuttle in stunned silence, trying to process what they had learned. Finally, Vexthal spoke. If your technology is so superior, why did you not simply destroy our fleet when we arrived? Tony Clark, who was riding with them, thought carefully before answering. Because we're not conquerors. We prefer to talk before we fight. But you could have eliminated us easily, Zalkar said. Yes, Tony admitted. But why would we want to? You haven't actually hurt anyone. We came to conquer your world, Vexthal pointed out. You came to what you thought was a primitive world, Tony corrected. You didn't know what you were dealing with. Now you do. When they arrived back at the UN building, the Zephyrians were visibly shaken. Their entire worldview had been turned upside down. What happens now? Vexthal asked quietly. Now we talk. Tony replied. We figure out how to move forward. You mean you're not going to conquer us in return? Asked Zalkar. Why would we want to conquer you? Tony asked. We'd rather be friends. That evening, the human leadership met to discuss the situation. The aliens were clearly in shock, and decisions needed to be made about how to proceed. "They're good people," reported Dr. Helen Brooks. "They really believed they were helping primitive species. They never imagined they would encounter a civilization more advanced than their own." 2 weeks after the shocking technology demonstrations, Supreme Commander Vexthal requested a private meeting with the human leadership. The proud alien leader who had arrived demanding surrender now looked tired and confused. President Kate Johnson met with him in her private office, along with Ambassador Tony Clark and Dr. Helen Brooks. Vexthal sat quietly for several minutes before speaking. "I have been thinking," he said slowly, "about everything we have seen. My advisors and I have discussed your technology, your society, your approach to other species." He paused, looking uncomfortable. "We have reached a conclusion that is difficult for me to accept." "What conclusion is that?" President Johnson asked gently. "We are not the advanced civilization we believed ourselves to be," Vexthal admitted. "Compared to your people, we are the primitive ones." Tony leaned forward. "Commander, being less technologically advanced doesn't make you primitive. Your people have accomplished amazing things. You've built a peaceful empire across thousands of worlds." "Peaceful?" Vexthal looked surprised. "We are conquerors." "No," Dr. Helen said with a smile. "You're teachers. Bad teachers, maybe, but your intentions are good." Vexthal looked confused. "I do not understand," Helen explained carefully. "From what we've learned, your empire doesn't use force to conquer worlds. You find primitive species and convince them that you're advanced beings worthy of worship. Then you try to help them develop better technology and society." "That is correct," Vexthal said slowly. "That makes you teachers, not conquerors," Helen continued. "The problem is that your own technology is limited, so you can't help them very much." "Are you saying we have been inadequate?" Vexthal asked. "Not inadequate," President Johnson said kindly. "Just limited by what you knew. Everyone works with the knowledge they have." Vexthal was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, "What do you propose we do now?" "We help each other," Tony suggested. "You teach us about the galaxy, about all the different species you've encountered. We share our technology and help you become the advanced civilization you want to be." "You would do this?" Vexthal looked amazed. "Even after we tried to conquer you?" "You didn't try to conquer us," President Johnson pointed out. "You tried to help what you thought was a primitive species. That's actually quite noble." Over the following weeks, a remarkable transformation began. The Zephyrian fleet remained in Earth orbit, but instead of an invasion force, it became a cultural exchange program. Dr. Amy Rodriguez worked with Technical Officer Kethmer to understand Zephyrian technology. She was amazed by how clever their solutions were, even if they were inefficient. "Your quantum communication system is brilliant," she told Kethmer. "It's completely different from our approach. More complex, but also more secure in some ways." Kethmer looked pleased. "Really? We thought your technology made ours obsolete." "Not obsolete," Amy explained. "Just different. We can learn from each other." Meanwhile, engineer Alex Turner was working with Chief Engineer Vorthak to upgrade the Zephyrian ships. But instead of replacing everything, they were finding ways to improve existing systems. "Your fusion reactors are actually very well designed," Alex told Vorthak. "With a few modifications, we can make them much more efficient without changing the basic design." "You mean we do not have to abandon our technology?" Vorthak asked hopefully. "Of course not," Alex replied. "Good engineering is good engineering. We just need to optimize what you already have." The cultural exchange was even more interesting. Dr. Helen Brooks spent hours talking with the Zephyrians about the thousands of species in their empire. "You've encountered so much diversity," she said to Commander Zalkar. Every species has developed different solutions to the same problems. That's incredibly valuable knowledge. But most of them are primitive, Zalkar protested. Primitive technology doesn't mean primitive ideas, Helen explained. Some of the best solutions come from species that have to be creative because they don't have advanced tools. Captain Julie Anderson worked with the Zephyrians to plan new exploration missions. Instead of looking for worlds to conquer, they would search for species that needed help developing. We can create teams, Julie suggested. Humans and Zephyrians, working together. We provide the advanced technology. You provide the experience dealing with different species. And we help species develop in ways that suit their own culture, added Zalkar, who was beginning to understand the concept. Biggest challenge was convincing the rest of the Zephyrian Empire. Many officers and officials back on their home worlds couldn't believe that they had encountered a more advanced species. Vexthul called a meeting with his senior staff to address their concerns. A meeting was held aboard the flagship, but now it included several human advisors. Fellow Zephyrians, Vexthul began, I know many of you find our new situation difficult to accept. We came here as conquerors and discovered that we were the ones who needed to learn. Admiral Corvaith, one of the senior officers, spoke up. Commander, with respect, how do we know these humans are telling the truth? Perhaps this is some kind of elaborate deception. Dr. Pete Johnson, who was attending the meeting, activated a small device. Suddenly, the entire room was filled with a perfect holographic recreation of the Zephyrian home world. This is your capital city as it appears. Right now, Pete said calmly. Our sensors can observe your entire empire in real time from this distance. The Zephyrians stared in shock at the perfect image of their home, complete with moving people and vehicles. If we wanted to deceive you, Pete continued, we could have done much simpler things. We could have pretended to be primitive and then surprised you later. Instead, we're trying to help you. Technical Officer Kethmer spoke up. I have examined their technology personally. It is real, and it is far beyond our capabilities. But they are not using it against us. Why not? Asked Admiral Corveth. Because they are not conquerors, Vexthul replied. They are teachers, and they want to help us become better teachers too. Over the following months, the relationship between humans and Zephyrians grew stronger. Joint teams were formed to visit worlds in the Zephyrian Empire and provide real help to developing species. Captain Danny Ross commanded the first joint mission, visiting a world called Kelm Tar, where the local species was struggling with energy production. Your people told them that fusion power was the ultimate solution. Danny explained to his Zephyrian partner, Science Officer Tysel. But their planet doesn't have the right materials for fusion fuel. What do you suggest? Tysel asked. Danny activated a portable fusion reactor. We provide them with this technology temporarily, while we help them develop geothermal and solar systems that work with their local resources. But that will take years, Tysel protested. Good education always takes time, Danny replied. The goal isn't to make them dependent on our technology. It's to help them develop their own solutions. The mission was a huge success. The Kelmtari were amazed by the human technology, but even more impressed by the patient teaching approach. Within 6 months, they had developed their own sustainable energy systems. Back on Earth, a new institution was being established. The Human Zephyrian Academy would train teachers from both species to help developing civilizations across the galaxy. Director Lisa Turner, formerly a chef, but now an expert in cultural adaptation, explained the Academy's mission to a mixed class of human and Zephyrian students. The goal is not to make every species like us, she said. The goal is to help each species become the best version of themselves. Student Officer Vexka, a young Zephyrian, raised her hand. But how do we know what the best version is? We ask them, replied human student Matt Thompson. We don't decide for them. We give them options and let them choose. That is very different from our traditional approach, admitted Vexka. Yes, Lisa said with a smile. And that's why we're all here learning together. The transformation of the Zephyrian Empire was gradual but profound. Instead of conquering primitive worlds, they began helping them develop. Instead of imposing Zephyrian culture, they encouraged diversity. Supreme Commander Vexthul, now calling himself Coordinator Vexthul, sent regular reports to Earth about their progress. The species in our empire are more creative and productive than ever before, he reported. When we stopped trying to make them like us and started helping them be themselves, everything improved. President Johnson read his reports with satisfaction. It sounds like you've become the advanced civilization you always wanted to be. Yes, Vexthul replied over the quantum communication link. But we had to learn what advanced really means. 2 years after first contact, Earth and the Zephyrian Empire had formed a formal alliance. The Human Zephyrian Development Council was helping hundreds of species across the galaxy improve their lives while maintaining their cultural identity. Ambassador Tony Clark, now serving as Earth's representative to the galactic community, often reflected on how the crisis had turned into opportunity. We could have destroyed their fleet on the first day, he told his staff during a meeting. Instead, we gained thousands of allies and partners. Do you think they'll ever become as advanced as we are? Asked his aide, Sarah Martinez. Probably, Tony replied. But that's not really the point. The point is that we're all advancing together. Dr. Helen Brooks, now head of the Gallic,